The worst thing about being lost is how many people enjoy naming it. Dagon knew where he was. He could name the road, the nearest well, the house with a loose back gate, the alley where 2 dogs slept until sunset unless someone brought fish through it. He was not lost. He was strategically elsewhere. He told himself this while eating at a table where respectable people had begun looking at him as if he were a stain learning to chew. He had come to Levi's house by accident. He had heard a woman laugh inside an open courtyard, the kind of laugh you do not fake, and the smell of stewed lentils and onion had reached him before the warmth. He had drifted in behind a boy with a basket the way men drift into rooms where no one is checking the door. The house belonged to a man called Levi by some and worse things by others. The food was real, and Dagon had reached a point in life where he tried not to interrogate bread until after swallowing. Jesus was there, the problem, or one of them. Jesus sat at the table as if tables were meant to survive the wrong people. Around him gathered the kind of men who made decent households lock boxes before prayer. Tax collectors, women with histories told more loudly than their names, men whose hands had learned too many trades after dark, a few followers trying to look comfortable with the guest list and failing in interesting ways. Dagon understood the room immediately. Half the people were relieved to be invited, half were waiting to be punished for accepting. Mara moved near the doorway with a water jar, which meant the house had acquired intelligence whether it deserved it or not. She saw Dagon see her and raised one eyebrow in a way that asked whether he planned to steal from a dinner where everyone already knew how stealing worked. He looked away. There were men outside too, not eating, watching. Their robes were cleaner than the room required. Their faces had the heavy patience of people waiting for the world to prove them right. Dagon could hear them through the open space near the courtyard. He welcomes sinners. The word sinners arrived with teeth. Someone at the table laughed too loudly. Someone else stopped eating. Levi, if that was the name he was using that night, held his cup as if it had become legal evidence. Dagon kept chewing because chewing gives a man something to do while other people arrange his damnation. Jesus heard them. Of course he heard them. Dagon was beginning to suspect Jesus heard the part of a room that spoke before mouths got involved. He did not turn angry at first. Disappointing. Dagon liked clean anger. Clean anger helped him decide where to stand. Jesus did something worse. He looked at the table, at the people, not as a crowd. One by one it seemed, though his eyes did not move enough for that to be possible. Then he began telling a story about a sheep. Dagon almost left. He had survived Rome, hunger, Hanan, roads, knives, men with authority, men without authority, and a wedding where water developed opinions. He was not prepared to be corrected by livestock. But the room changed when Jesus spoke. Not dramatically, no thunder, no heavenly light setting the lentils aflame. People simply leaned without deciding to. Even the men outside quieted because contempt likes to hear itself justified before disagreeing. A man has 100 sheep, Jesus said, or near enough. One is missing. Dagon stared at his bread. Here it came. The lesson, stay with the flock, do not wander, obey shepherds, return before wolves make arguments unnecessary. Instead, the shepherd went looking. This annoyed Dagon so sharply he forgot to keep his face still. Mara saw it from the doorway. Jesus kept speaking. The shepherd left the 99 and went after the one until he found it, not until he made a reasonable effort, not until the weather changed. Not until someone pointed out the one had chosen stupidity and should enjoy the consequences. Until, that word was the hook, until he found it. Dagon stopped chewing. The piece of bread sat in his cheek with nowhere to go. His tongue had forgotten its work. He could taste the salt and the warmth and the small char where the loaf had touched the stone of the oven, but he could not seem to move the food. There was a heat coming up the back of his neck that was not the lamps and not the bodies and not the wine. There was a man on his left whose breath smelled of onion, and a woman on his right whose hair smelled of olive oil and the smoke of the kitchen. And he became suddenly aware that he was packed in close enough to feel each of their shoulders against his own, and he had not noticed it until the bread had stopped moving in his mouth. The room had gone quiet at the rim. Only the small wet sound of one man near the wall still chewing because his ears had not yet caught up with the table. He knew men who counted losses. Leaders loved the 99. 99 looked like success. The one ruined the count. Jesus seemed to enjoy this part, if enjoy was the word. There was humor in it somewhere, buried under mercy like a knife under cloth. The shepherd finds the sheep and does not beat it back into usefulness. He carries it, carries it. Dagon hated that. He imagined himself over someone's shoulders like an idiot animal, legs tied by relief, brought back to people who would say, there it is, the stupid one, the expensive one, the reason we all lost sleep. He would rather be eaten by wolves, probably. The story went on, rejoicing, friends, neighbors. Heaven happier over one who returns than over 99 who need no turning. That last part made several men outside shift their weight. Dagon appreciated the craftsmanship. You could cut a man deeply with a story if you made him hold it first. At the table, the word sinner had changed shape. It had not become harmless. That would be cheap. Some people in the room had done harm. Dagon knew because he was one of them. A man does not become innocent because someone feeds him. Bread is not that strong and guilt is not that polite, but the word had lost ownership. The men outside did not get to hold it alone anymore. Jesus had taken it into a field, put it on the shoulders of a shepherd, and made the room watch what love did with a thing that wandered. Levi wiped his mouth. His hand shook once. Dagon wished he had not seen that. Seeing made people harder to despise. After the story, eating resumed badly. That is how you know a story worked. Good stories ruin the rhythm of normal chewing. People reached for cups, missed conversation, laughed late, stared at bread as if bread might now have obligations. Dagon stood. Mara stepped into his path before he reached the courtyard. Leaving? No, I am practicing walking in case I decide to leave. How disciplined. Move. No. He looked at her. She was shorter than his irritation wanted her to be. You think that story was for me, he said. I think you think that. I do not. Then why are you angry? I am often angry. Yes, but usually with better posture. He almost laughed, which made everything worse. Outside, one of the watching men said something Dagon could not hear. Another answered. Their voices had regained some of their old confidence. People are very quick to recover from being convicted if they can find someone else to discuss. Jesus was still inside, speaking now to Levi in a lower voice. Dagon could not hear the words. Good, he did not want words. Words were becoming expensive lately. Mara stepped aside. That surprised him. What? He said. You told me to move. You never do what I say. Not when you are trying to escape yourself. If you are only escaping a room, I respect the craft. He should have left then. Instead, he looked back. His mistake. Jesus was watching him, not calling, not stopping, not exposing. Just watching from inside the room where sinners were eating and the righteous were starving themselves outside on principle. Dagon felt the old anger rise, the useful kind. The kind that made his hand know where the knife was and his feet know where the alley bent. Then Jesus smiled. Small, not triumphant. Almost apologetic, as if he knew being seen was a terrible thing to do to a man without asking permission. Dagon left. He made it 3 streets before realizing he had taken bread from the table without thinking. He stopped under a wall, cursed, and looked at it in his hand. Not stolen. Given. That distinction had begun to ruin his life. He ate it anyway. Mara had her own mistake that month. I learned about it 3 days after Levi's house, when I came home from a job that had gone wrong in the small way work goes wrong. Less coin than promised, more shame than expected, a thin cut along my forearm I did not want her to see and would have to invent a story about. She was sitting on the stool by the window with her knees drawn up and her hands around a clay cup. She had not been crying. Mara did not cry the way women in songs cry. When she was hurt, she sat still and finished her water slowly, the way you finish a meal you have promised yourself to enjoy. The cup was almost full. That told me before she opened her mouth. What did you do? I said. Came home. Before that, she looked up. I sat down where I should not have. I waited. Mara was the only person I knew who could explain herself by refusing to. Where? At Hannah's house. They were teaching. I knew the house, wide courtyard. A vine that gave more shade than fruit. Hannah's husband had been a synagogue elder before his back gave out, and the house had inherited his weight in the neighborhood the way some houses do. When teachers came through Capernaum and did not stay at Peter's place, they often went to Hannah's. The women gathered in the back room. The men gathered in the courtyard. Bread moved from one to the other. Voices did not. You went to the back room, I said, not a question. Confirming what I needed to be true. No. I sat down across from her on the floor because I did not trust the stool to hold me through this. He was teaching, Mara said. Not a story this time, a reading. He had the scroll. Hannah had given him the scroll. He read a piece I had heard before and a piece I had not, and he set the scroll down, and he began to say what the second piece meant, and she stopped. You what? I went to the front. I sat down at the edge of the mat where the men were sitting. I did not push anyone. I left space. I did not speak. I only sat. Mara, I know. For how long? All of it. I closed my eyes. I could see the room, the men shifting, Hannah seeing from the back doorway and not knowing what to do with what she was seeing. One of the elders' wives coming through the front gate after the teaching had started, taking in the shape of the gathering, finding the wrong shape, leaving without staying for the bread. By morning, our end of the city would know. By evening, the synagogue. Who else was there? 3 of the followers, 2 men from down the lane, a boy who carried wine, Hannah at the back, 2 of the elders' wives behind her. A woman named Tirzah I do not know. And he read. After he began, she set the cup down. He did not stop. He did not look at me strangely. He did not move me. When he reached the part he had wanted to reach, he looked at me once. The way you look at a person who has set down a thing she meant to carry. And then, he kept teaching. That is all. That is all. She picked the cup back up and finished it because she had decided somewhere in the telling that there had been enough silence already. I sat a long time. I was angry the way men are angry when their wives do something that will be charged to their household first. I was drafting in my head the things I would have to say at the next gathering to make the household survive without making her smaller. Then I looked at her face. She was not sorry. She was tired. She was waiting for me to be one kind of man or another, and she had not let the waiting bend her. The part of me that knew which alley bent away from patrols was the same part of me that knew, with the cold certainty of road knowledge, that she had not done a foolish thing. She had done a thing too early for the world to receive it cleanly. Those are not the same. Did he? I started. He let me sit. That was not what I was going to ask. It was. I did not argue with her because she was right. We had supper twice that month with a smaller circle than we were used to. The merchants did what I had predicted. The cousin appeared with her cloth bag sober face and her recommendation about the coast. The synagogue assembly did what I had predicted too, 3 weeks later in private, by silence. I told her about the arm in the 3rd week, after the small wound had begun to close badly, and she cleaned it without comment. I want to put this down honestly. I was angrier at her in those first days than I was at the people doing the punishing. It took me almost a year to understand the price had not been hers. It was a tax the room had decided to charge for a thing the room did not yet know how to name. He had let her sit. He had been in a room of men watching to see if he would correct her, and he had not. He had continued to teach, and by continuing he had made the room hold a thing it had been built to refuse. What Mara did was older than brave. She had decided what kind of person she was going to be in a room before